Welcome to CMO Confidential, the podcast that takes you inside the drama, decisions, and choices that go with being the head of marketing. Hosted by five-time CMO Mike Linton.
Welcome, marketers, advertisers, and those who love them, the Chief Marketing Officer Confidential. CMO Confidential is a program that takes you inside the drama, the decisions, and the politics that go with being the head of marketing at any company in what is one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite. I'm Mike Linton, the former Chief Marketing Officer of Best Buy, eBay, Farmers Insurance, and Ancestry.com, here today with my guest, Michael Treff. Today's topic, using AI for anticipation versus reaction, an agency perspective. Now, Michael is the CEO of Code and Theory, an agency that combines creatives with engineers to bring clients answers at the intersection of technology and creativity. Under his leadership, the company has grown to over 2,000 people and worked with numerous clients, including redesigning over 175 media and publishing clients over the past 12 years. He has deep client rosters in tech, financial services, and e-commerce. In a former life, or maybe even in his current life, Michael played in punk rock bands and ran a record label. Full disclosure, we met at the A&A B2B conference, a decidedly 100% non-punk rock place to be. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thanks so much. Pleasure to be here, Mike. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's jump right into the headline topic. And you talked a little bit about this at the conference, anticipation versus reaction. Start by telling us about this concept as it relates to the consumer and the marketplace.
Sure. So for years and years and years, it has been all about how can we gather as much information as possible? How can we learn about our customers? How can we react to them as in the moment and as fast as you can humanly do so that you are there meeting your customer where they are and reacting to their every need? And for a very long time, that was the best you could do. Technology wasn't in a place where you could do anything more than that. You hoped you had a great data strategy, and hopefully, your decision tree around personalization was such that it really
you
worked.
do tons of consumer research and ask them, what about this? But yeah, that's what you have.
1,000%, exactly. So that's all well and good, but it's 2024. And the technology is completely different today than it has been prior. And we can do more than just react, which is a historical event. Any type of reaction is by default reacting to something that already happened. But when behavior changes, when needs change, when people change, when humans change, we need to do more than that. And so given where technology is today, and certainly with AI, and we'll get into that in a little bit, we should be thinking about how we can anticipate what people may need in the future. And that's much more than just a decision tree based on past performance. And so what we spend a lot of time doing is thinking about how can we build systems that maybe bring experiences, content, products, services, whatever it may be, to people anticipating they may need that, not necessarily reacting to a signal that they do need that. And that's the difference.
So let's drill into that a little bit, because one of the things that you always were looking at, or at least, before you had AI, was you could predict versus react. Yeah. But you're saying there's a difference between anticipation and prediction. Like when Netflix predicts I'm going to like something. Tell us the difference between, exactly, so our listeners know the difference between prediction, anticipation, and we've already talked about reaction.
Sure. And look, this is not the first time anyone's going to say what I'm about to say. This is a common example.
Oh, no, this is the first time we are breaking this on the show. Oh, just
okay, great. Okay, great. Breaking news. You used the Netflix example. The Netflix algorithm is basically built on your previous consumption behavior and lookalike consumption behavior. So it thinks, because you did this, and this, and other people like you did this, and this, here's the stuff that we're going to recommend for you. And I would argue, now, Mike, I don't sit with you on the couch, so I don't know if this is true or not, but I would argue that you probably spend more time trying to figure out what to watch than you actually do watching things when you're on Netflix.
I think that's probably true to everybody that watches Netflix. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So that is where prediction goes wrong, because prediction, again, is built purely on past behavior and lookalike past behavior. But when things change, when humans change, when need states change, when I now have a child, I didn't have a child, or I'm now in a relationship and I wasn't in a relationship. And I'm using the Netflix example.
No.
The anticipatory nature to understand what those changes might be, to pick up on different types of signals, to maybe present things that were outside of historical behavior, or to say, factor X, Y, and Z has changed over the past 3 months. So now I'm going to move forward with introducing new variables A, B, and C. That is more around anticipation. And so the best trigger for anticipation isn't necessarily past behavior, though that's part of it, and prediction can continue to be perfected. But it's around behavior. I know we're gonna talk about what that means a little more future.
So this is like, I guess you're signaling by other things than just what you've done here. But doesn't this, like, how do you know if you have the ability as a company to really anticipate versus just predict? What kind of data structure or thoughts do you need? Because I can say I want to anticipate what you're going to say next. But tell us this.
So this is where the technology changes really matter. So, very dynamic and algorithm building is built on data that can be captured, data that can be analyzed, data that can be extrapolated. We're now in a world where we have another type of intelligence to use. We have AI, we have artificial intelligence, and soon we'll have deeper and more generative forms of intelligence, where intelligence is building on intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. So when we think about how do we know what I might want or my future need state, et cetera, we don't. The point is we don't, but we're using intelligence that used to just be able to export something predictive to now export something that is a bit more thoughtful in what you might want, because it's based on not necessarily what you've done in the past, but it's based on the signals that you're sending it to know. And so part of that is, to your point, should your data be in order? Of course your data needs to be in order. You need to start anything, whether it's the right algorithm, recommendation engines, anything predictive, or even anything anticipatory in the future, with getting your data in right. And I would argue, and certainly you have a good view of this, most organizations don't really place a premium on structuring and using the data. They place a really high premium on collecting the data. And oftentimes that leads to non-decision, or that leads to an overwhelming amount of data that I can't parse and use in any sort of intelligent way to drive business results. However, in this case, and the smart organizations are starting to think about, okay, what data do I have? What data can I create that's synthetic using AI? What sort of models can I create to anticipate what might happen in the future, what changes are, what inputs am I giving it, what data do I change regularly, what data do I not, what data should I buy to include versus what needs to be proprietary. And so those types of conversations.
I wish you had some enthusiasm on this topic. The thing I would ask, give us an example of a good company or story you can tell where anticipation comes into play. It's a consumer or marketplace story.
I just want to be very clear. I don't think anyone is doing this very well.
Okay.
And I do think that a lot of the e-commerce engines and the content recommendation engines have the opportunity to get there first and foremost. But I'll give you a really good example of possibility.
Excellent.
Because I think that's what this is about. If I may, for 1 second,
of course,
I'll come back to it. The most of the conversation that everyone has today, and look, you're in these conversations, I'm in these conversations around AI and the use of emerging technology to really drive business results, they really fall into two buckets. They fall into how can I save money, efficiency, operational efficiency, cost savings, whatever it may be, or they come into how can I enable it to do more of what I'm already doing today? So scale, right? It's one of those two conversations. I've been in thousands of them. Very rarely am I in a conversation around AI that's, hey, what experiences could we create for people now today using a new type of intelligence built on the right data that we can now create something new? So I just want to start with, that's why I don't think anyone is doing this very well. I think this is the next frontier. And the way the next frontier expresses is not necessarily in a recommendation, but in a completely different experience or a completely different product or in something super ephemeral that was existed in that moment, a piece of content, maybe a product, maybe a service that was specific to you and your situation and maybe what you're looking to do and accomplish. So let's now come back to a real example.
Yeah.
Travel.
Knock yourself out. And you use super ephemeral or whatever word you just used. That's never been used on the show before. So excellent.
I mean, breaking new ground. Great. Travel. The entire travel industry today it falls into, I've built an experience where you have to fill out forms like you're doing taxes to basically get the results that I want. And I have to play with facets and filters, and I have to like make sure all my criteria is right. And then I'm frustrated because the comparison tools are terrible. I always feel like I'm not, getting the appropriate amount of information or choice in front of me. So I go into 16 different sites before I make a booking, unless I'm a super loyalist to a particular brand in a particular category, in which case I feel locked in. And it's really, really directional. It's very one directional. And that's just not human behavior. And then sometimes I don't even know that I want to book something. I don't even know that I'm in the mood to travel. I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just having a crappy day. And then we have a whole industry built around trying to create content to get you into that mood, right? Which hopefully it works or hopefully it doesn't. But if you think about travel and anticipation, one, there's a lot of cyclical behavior in travel, right? And that is past experience, but we can anticipate when there might be a break in that behavior. We can anticipate based on other life situations that I may know about, or other behaviors that I might be expressing in social media, in other places that leave a digital footprint where I can get data around it, that there's indicating that something might be different, and I can break that cycle. Right?
Sure,
so
I just picked up a new sport. I bought running shoes. I've never done that before. I bought hiking shoes. I bought skis. There's so many things. Yes.
Right. I just enrolled my kids into basketball camp. So maybe, we want to go this summer to a tournament here, and here, whatever it may be. Right. We believe that as an example, again, for travel, we can create these experiences. We can use anticipation to create a totally different experience for you, where maybe you land on a travel site and it's all inspirational content that's just created in that moment using AI. So it's new assets that didn't exist, that no one had to touch, to create a world of possibility for you and where your summer might go. Because we know your kid's going to be out of school. We know that you don't have any real commitments because of your calendar that maybe you gave me access to, until the fall. We know that you've already planned to take a week off of work. And so now we're going to give you all these new possibilities because we're anticipating that maybe even if you aren't looking, you might want to do something moving forward. And if we can just give you the right experience, the right content, the right options, you might be able to book that. Now think about that across other industries.
Yeah, this is what you mean when you say, what you said at the conference, what really caught my attention is behavior is the ultimate prompt. That's what you're really saying here, right?
That's exactly right. And thank you for bringing that up. So I come from product development background in part. And one of the things you learn in product development is that what people say and what people actually do are completely different things. So when you do focus groups and you do research around how you're going to use this product. What if you had a product that did this, and this, and like what kind of features would you want in that product? And how do you imagine using it? And what's the frequency? You get all these answers, you analyze it, and you're like, okay, this is what people said they're going to do. And then you launch a beta. And then you're sitting in that beta and you have analytics and you're tracking things, and people do nothing that they said they were going to do. In fact, they use it totally differently, right? So we have always believed that if you look at what people actually do, not what people say, if you look at the way they navigate situations, the way they navigate, the world of digital, the way they consume products and services, the way they engage with content, and you put that on top of understanding of need states, understandings of products and services that you could offer people, that's what behavior is the ultimate prompt means. It means getting past the data that doesn't indicate what humans actually do and going right to what they actually have done or are intending to do that they're unable to, and building solutions for that.
I don't know if you can answer this question because I don't know if you can expose any of the client stuff you've done, but is there an example you've done here that you can share with us or not?
There are. I mean, there are historical examples. I can't get into like some of the current ones, obviously.
It's all right. I'll take a historical one. You can. Okay.
I'm going to give you a historical one. We've done a lot of work in publishing. You mentioned that in the beginning. And one thing that we saw when people were on publishing sites, like this is back in the day, like what I'm about to say is going to be very familiar to everybody listening to this. We found in the data of what people do, significant drop off at the end of an article if a user didn't like the 3 articles that were recommended at the bottom of the page, right? Like this feels common. You remember this. And we said, there's probably a reason, and it's probably not because they don't like those articles. It's probably because we're forcing them to make a choice. And sometimes people don't just want to choose. They just want to keep going. And modern social media was built on this, right? Like how many modern social media feeds, you're not making a choice. You're just going.
Right.
So in publishing, that didn't exist. So when you look at the behavior as the prompt. The behavior was, I want to keep consuming things. I just don't want to have to make a choice. Just keep it coming. Right. And so we did, and this is a long time ago. I think we were the first company to do it, but like, you could fact check that. Jeff, can you fact check that, please, when you're going through this? We decided to just take away that barrier and just roll one page into the next page. And now all of a sudden the whole internet's endless scroll. You're going piece of content into piece of content into piece of content, and the social media feeds are built. That's how modern publishers are built. And what happened? Pages per visit went up, time on site went up, ads exposed went up, revenue went up. The value was there to me. And I could continue to dial, which article I rolled into based on your behavior, et cetera, et cetera. But that's like a perfect example, historical example that I can talk about.
I like that one.
Where, when you look at behavior, it opens up totally new experience opportunities. And AI, if I can just say, is so helpful in that, because now AI has the ability to build that next page in a totally different way than it was previously. It has the ability to build like a specific path for you in a very different way than we could have ever before, because it would have taken too long and the computational power wasn't there, and it was just technically burdensome. But it's not anymore.
This is a lot like research, where you would ask, would you like articles recommended after this one? And you would say yes. And then you would say, would you like 3, 1, or 5? And they would say 3. You knew they were going to pick 3. But
exactly.
That is a really good example. Let's shift and write we got a lot of marketers and agency people in our audience here. Write them into the story. How should they be thinking about this now? I mean, everyone's talking about AI transformation. Lord knows we've done a lot of shows on it. What should they start doing now to get ready for this age of anticipation?
So look, and not to be redundant, but we talked about it earlier, all the conversations are about efficiencies or scale. And sure, that's the low-hanging fruit. But if we step back, there's like a New York Times article about this recently. Billions and billions of dollars, if not more than that, has been spent on AI. And marketers and organizations spending all this money on new technology, on consultants, on fancy plans, on roadmaps.
A lot of consultants make
a lot of consultants. Like, Accenture's having a great year, right? Like,
they are.
We get it. But if I could ask you, Mike, just a quick question. Has AI impacted your daily life in any way whatsoever, or any experiences that you have in the world?
Modestly, we use it to write actually our newsletter. And we use it to do some research, but and I use it to make funny pictures that I send to people, but not hugely. Yes,
exactly. So you're actually hitting the point. You're using it as a scale and efficiency play, and it's doing something faster and easier for you than you could have done it before. And I get that, and everyone gets that. So obviously, in an economically constrained universe where everyone is trying to cut costs, regardless of what the economy is doing. Everyone is trying to cut costs. Everyone wants to be more efficient. Everybody has a lot more scrutiny, especially in the CMO seat, for all the CMOs listening to this. On every dollar that you spend and what's the ROI against it, of course, the first knee-jerk reaction is, how can I save money? How can I do with this?
Well, it's a great way to get a good mark. You get a good mark for using it, and then you can explore it. So I do think it also, you can control that test. And you 100%. Don't have to promise something you can't deliver. But
100%. It's a safe play too, because let's be honest.
Like, it is safe.
When you go to the CEO or the CFO and you say, I'm going to reduce our burden, by 15% using AI, and let's assume all the legal issues and the IP control issues, let's just ignore that for a second. That's going to get worked out, right? Or it's in the software, like companies like Adobe who will indemnify. Like, all that stuff works. Of course, that's the knee jerk, but that doesn't get us anywhere. It really doesn't. If you think about my question to you about, has it really impacted your life in any significant way for the amount of money that's being invested into it? The answer is still no. And it's because we're not focusing on what it can do as a business enabler. We're not looking at it for like, what experiences can it create for you in new different ways? What products and services can it create that makes people want to spend more money because there's real value exchange with your company, right? So that is, I think, the biggest miss, and the advice that I constantly give our clients and I constantly push our teams on, which is, can we stop looking at it as an efficiency and cost reduction play? And can we start looking at it as a creative enabler?
And it's the easiest place to plug this into customer service because the interface is so repeatable? Or when I start looking at experiences, one of the things is that customer service, particularly high volume customer service, it's a lot of repeatable. I can customize it. AI can think for me. Is that a good place to start? And if so, how do you recommend? And then what other places are good places to start?
Okay, great question. So if I'm internet service provider, mobile service provider, X or Y, and I have a massive cost center in customer service, and that could be handled through automation and AI and bot or voice environments, faster, more efficiently, more controlled, and I can really dial a model to be able to understand the nuance of a person and what they may need, and when I also need to abandon them to a different tier of service with potentially humans. Of course you should. That makes tons of sense, because you should as a business be wanting to make every dollar you spend more valuable. And if the technology can do something the humans can't, or the technology can do it in a faster, more efficient way than a human can, you should absolutely be doing that. So yes, customer service is a great expression for that. And yes, how do you start about it? You analyze the customer service use cases. You look at actual behavior. You look at how people engage. You look at, the pie chart of your call volume and, what you can solve in an automated way and what you can't. And you make those calculations and you do that change management. No question. However, I would argue that's a short-term play. I've never seen a business.
Look, everyone's going to do that. Everyone will pull the costs down, and in 10 years, that will be just the ante to be in.
That'll be it. And
how do I make it? How do I make it into something else?
Exactly. So now we're getting into exciting area. So look, the software is going to solve.
I've been waiting for you to get excited about this in this interview. So
I'm only on one cup of coffee right now. So, but the I do want to say, I do believe the software is going to solve this. Like, this is a software problem, and the software is going to solve those types of use cases, because all the software makers are going to see massive revenue opportunity in solving those replicable, common use cases, right? So that's going to happen. We've seen that in every technological arc that has happened since the internet and before.
Yeah, it's just the nature of things. It's like gravity.
Exactly. So that's going to get solved. So no one's saying don't do that. Absolutely do that. Get your data in order, find your use cases, find the high value moments to do this within your organization, whatever it may be. If you're an e-commerce company and you're spending a ton of money.
You're saying save the cost, but have a two-pronged strategy. Do something innovative on the front end with either product or actually the customer experience.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying, because I can tell you, not a lot of people are having that conversation. And the people that are, they're going to have organizational capability to be able to do this stuff. They're going to have people who think this way. A lot of this is change management on humans, being able to think
I agree.
differently.
Look, and a ton of agencies are going to have to cut a lot of people when this happens, as this rolls.
No question.
So
there's no question about it.
How many agencies will actually be able to do this? Let's flip it to the agency side. How many agencies will actually be able to do this? Because almost always the dominant cost of agencies is people. AI is going to replace a ton of people on a lot of this stuff. How many agencies are going to be able to do this as a percent?
Okay, this is a very difficult question for a guy who runs an agency to answer.
I'm aware.
So you just flipped it and totally put me on the hot seat. But look, this is what we fundamentally believe, and then I'll come back specifically to your question. We believe, and I believe very deeply, that AI will not replace humans. AI will replace humans who don't use AI. So if I'm a creative, and I'm a creative person, and I'm a problem solver, if I'm not embracing AI as a new tool in my toolbox, the same way Photoshop was a new tool to a designer or a photographer, then you're going to be replaced. We have an initiative at our company where we're asking everybody in the company to rewrite their job description with AI as their co-pilot. Not because we're trying to eliminate jobs, but because we want people to unlock additional value. And that's what this is about. So it's value to your agency and it's value to your clients. So do I want my clients paying us for things that could be done with technology?
No. And if you don't, the clients will, other will outprice you. We did a whole show, Is AI an Extinction Event for Agencies?
Right. It was a great one.
I want to flip over. Code and Theory does a lot of work with B2B.
Yep.
Talk about AI marketing and B2B and what you're seeing, and any tips you would give our B2B listeners.
Okay. Well, controversial statement. I said it at the ANA when we met, and I don't think it necessarily went over that great, but I'm going to say it again. I believe that putting a delineation of B2B on top of marketing to business marketing is the worst possible thing you can do, because you've just put a box around the creativity. And guess what? Humans don't think that way. No one self-identifies as like a B2B customer. They're humans at the end of the day. They make the same types of
I've worked with
decisions.
some people that would challenge that statement, but okay.
to be nameless, to remain nameless.
Yes.
But it's true. I mean, like if you look at some of the most effective B2B marketing, it's consumer tactics, or it's just consumer marketing that drives the value on the B2B side. I can't tell you how many briefs we get where it's like, we need to drive premium in our B2B business, and the solution to doing that is drive premium at the end consumer business, do consumer things to drive that value. So,
what that just says is sell more stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately that's everyone's job, right? So, but we believe that fundamentally. So when I think about B2B as a category, to us, it's the same sort of rubric and framework of approach. You want to really think about your customers. You want to know them in the most impactful way that you can. And a lot of what we've talked about in the past half hour is about that. It's, understanding their behaviors, understanding what they might need. And then you want to solve problems for them. I mean, the most effective B2B marketing, because it is different, the cycles are different, the buyers are different. Oftentimes the decision tree around it is different. There's different kinds of scrutiny. These can be very, very large contracts. They can be very, very small contracts. It really depends on the category, but solving problems for your intended customer never goes wrong, right? So what are the friction points? How can I help them? If I have a customer on the B2B side, how many B2B marketers think about this? If you could do better sales enablement for your direct customer to sell within their organization, you could probably do a lot. We hear this all the time, especially in financial services where there's an intermediary.
What's an example of this? Just so everyone can follow along in this. Tell me exactly in a financial services, you don't have to name the financial services company, but the selling process you're talking about. Give me
I'll give you an example. Let's say I sell insurance products, right? I'm an insurance company. And let's say that I have a 50-50 mix of kind of internal sales agents who work for my company. Yeah. And then I have, a series of 50% of my sales staff are third-party independent contractors who are selling our product. Yeah. If I could create a tool for either side of that packages better content, better materials, easier information, better to understand in the format that their end customers want more efficiently. So if I'm, a freelance third party selling an insurance product, then I could say, I could go into a tool. I have a customer that cares about this. They love video. They read nothing. This is their big concern. Can you put together something for me? And I could get back a 2-minute video with a bunch of supplementary materials that could solve that person's problem, versus someone internally in my organization who says, this is a huge procurement organization. I need 16 layers of checks and background and information and facts and figures on X, Y, and Z. Can you put that together in a package for me? And you could use something like AI to create the video in the former or the package in the latter. And I had no human burden on doing that. That's real sales enablement. And so that's what I mean by looking for ways to solve problem for the end consumer, and then looking at your organization for better ways to be able to deliver that.
I like that. That's a 2-step sales process in my head. I like
exactly.
I want to move on, and we're running towards the end of the show, but I would be completely negligent if I didn't ask you about the punk rock and the albums and the music and the band name. So just share a little bit about the whole punk rock thing and especially the band names.
Well, okay, I'll give you two. And first of all, I will say this, that everything I ever learned in my life about like business and relationships and, how to do things, I learned through music. And
are we talking like Blink 182, or who are we talking about here?
No, we're definitely not talking that. We're talking right. we're talking things that actually nobody likes and that nobody listens to. So, my mom has the records framed on the wall. That's about it. But when I was in high school, I was in a band called Closure. It was a very fun band, very screamy, very heavy, hardcore band from Long Island, New York. And then later in life, I was in a band for a short time called Baby Teeth until we got sued and had to change our name. And that was much more straight ahead rock and roll. Yeah. Such a common name. It was such a great name, but we got sued, so we shut it down. But that was really fun. And then during that era, I ran a record label, which I'm very, very proud of. And
what was that label?
It was called Tiger Style Records, and we put out about 52 albums in 5 years, and some stuff I'm very, very, very proud of. I was very lucky and privileged to work with some great partners on that, and some really incredible bands.
All right, my producer and I are expecting some signed copies of some music. So I think there's the side benefit of interviewing you. So
oh yeah, just payola. Don't worry.
There we go. So we're to the last traditional question of the show, which is it's a two-parter. You have to take one or both of these, but you have to take at least one. Funniest story you can tell on the air and or practical advice for our listeners we haven't discussed yet.
I'm going to go practical advice because I'm not the funniest person. And this is not a stand-up comic over here.
I don't know. I'm putting you pretty high up there. So
thanks. Practical advice is this. And maybe I learned this going back to music. Just break things down into small chunks and execute them. That is true whether you're building products and services, whether you're doing marketing, whether you're doing massive change management and technical reinvention, you're trying to figure out what to do with AI. Whatever the problem is, just break it down into small chunks and start moving through them. And be comfortable moving through them and just continuing the inertia of moving forward. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to mess it up. People forget this all the time. No one knows what they're doing, especially in emerging technology. There are no experts. It's all fake experts. So just go do something and you'll learn and you'll grow. And that's my practical advice.
I like that. So yeah, and that I think if I hear you right is get started versus thinking about, as they say in the South, I'm fixing to get ready, meaning I haven't done anything yet. So you're saying get going. So I think that's a great way to end the show. Thank you, Michael. And thanks to everyone for listening to CMO Confidential. If you are enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Look for all of our shows on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and the I Hear Everything Network, which include Marketing, The Battle Between Believers and Non-Believers, Parts 1, 2, and 3. Is the CMO job the hardest job in business? What your agency wants to tell you but won't, Parts 1, 2, and 3, and an influencer primer, avoiding potholes on the yellow brick road. Hey, all of you marketers, stay safe out there. This is Mike Linton signing off for CMO Confidential.